Thank everybody for coming out tonight to the Mount Vernon News mayoral debate featuring the two candidates for mayor, Starr and Richard Mavis. I'm Samantha Scholes. I'm managing editor of the Mount Vernon News. I'm joined tonight by Marty Tracy, editor of Knox Pages, Curtis Newland, program manager at WQIO, WMBO, and Mariah Powell. She is the news director of WNZR, and she's the editor of the Lake Home Viewer. We are going to be asking questions of our candidates tonight and hope to engage them in an exciting exchange of ideas and plans for the future of the city. At this time, I'm going to ask everyone to shut their cell phones off so that we can give our full attention to the task at hand. Would everyone please help me welcome our candidates, Mayor Richard Mavis and Matt Starr.
I offered one-on-one basketball, but
a name was drawn earlier to determine who would start us off tonight. Mr. Mavis, you have 3 minutes for your opening statement.
Well, good evening, everyone. It is a delight to see so many people out. In America, we find the best politics is an event where you have two good people, two quality and honorable people running for the same office. You have that here tonight. It's an honor to be here with Matt. Thank you to the Mount Vernon News and the co-sponsors for giving us the opportunity to do this. Samantha said I should say who I am and why would I be a good next mayor of the city of Mount Vernon. Most of you know that I am the mayor and I am trying to become another 4 years, elected for another 4-year term. The city of Mount Vernon is a wonderful place to live, work, and raise our children. Didn't get that way in the last 4 years, the last 20 years even. Gets that because all of you are part of what we do here. We all work to make Mount Vernon a better place. And that's what my job is, that's what the mayor's job is. We can't go out and run each department. One of the things we do is gain experience in basically what the city does. So we put people in good places and high places in positions of authority, and then you empower them to do the job. I can't go out and question every move everyone makes. It's good enough that we have someone at the top, someone's been elected by the voters, and someone who's going to give good, solid direction. And when something goes wrong, and we should remember, we have 160 people strong working for the city of Mount Vernon. Sometimes good people have bad things happen to them, and sometimes good people do bad things. They sometimes make an error in judgment. One of the things that should be always put in place is that we must move forward and make an investigation, make a judgment on whether or not that employee is salvageable. If he or she is, then we take the next move in a positive way. If, in fact, the person is not salvageable, then you all know what happens. It is termination, or it is some other move that removes that person from that position. As mayor of the city, I can't go out there and hold hands with 160 people. But what we have to do is hope we put good people in good places to start with. I see by the little timer down here that it's about over. We're going to be here this evening, and I'm hoping that I can share with you what I think we have done in the short term and what I see us doing in the long term. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Starr, you have 2 minutes. You have 3 minutes, I'm sorry.
all right. Well, thank you for that, Samantha. I would like all of us to remember the victims who were murdered recently. I think we need to keep them in our prayers. While that investigation is going on, I ask that you always have them in your thoughts and prayers. Also, my heart goes out to the Mavis family for Brian Hunter and his family, who was just recently lost. Great, great man in our community. Please keep them in your thoughts and prayers as well. Thank you to the media who showed up. The Mount Vernon News for sponsoring this event, MVNU, thank you for hosting it. What a beautiful place this is. You know what? It's been a long time since I've been on stage, so I can't promise I'm not going to break out in song and dance. Okay? When I first came to Mount Vernon, I normally do not talk about myself, but we're running out of time, so I'm going to cut to the chase. When I first came to Mount Vernon, I fell in love with it. When I fell in love with it, I was working at the Developmental Center, and then I got involved in the nonprofit community. IMC, International Management Council, which later became NMA, the Chamber of Commerce, the Heritage Center Association, the Salvation Army, Food for the Hungry, many, many other organizations, Dynamite Music and Arts Festival, Convention and Visitors Bureau, just got so ensconced in this community because I absolutely fell in love with it. And I realized this is where I want to spend the rest of my life. It helped that I met my soulmate here too, who's sitting back there. Many of you know me as Shrek, Daddy Warbucks, Shark Tooth, or some other character I may have played on stage, but I'm so much more. I'm a businessman. I have 4 businesses. And I am a former coach for Kenyon College, former adjunct faculty member for COTC. I'm a published poet, published author, a writer, director, producer, and artist. And as a businessman, an entrepreneur, I have the great luxury of paying a lot of taxes. Taxes that are important to me, that they are looked after in a responsible manner. I was asked to say why I want to be the mayor. It's because we need a plan. I'm involved in these organizations, and it's apparent we need a 1-year, a 3-year, and a 5-year plan. We have no plan to date, and I can't go by without making an effort to get us to the future. It's time for a new generation of leadership. This man, I have supported his projects, he supported mine. I'm still gunning for his job. That's how I show my love. Anyway, on November 3rd, I ask for your vote because that's going to set the next 20 years in motion, because we know failure to plan is a plan to fail.
Thank you. Mayor, I have to say that your opening statement led beautifully into my first question. Right now, we have a city employee on paid administrative leave since June, facing petty theft charges. Nothing has happened to her regarding discipline for breaking city rules. We have a detective on paid administrative leave while BCI conducts an investigation into unreleased allegations. And just before we started tonight, I learned that he was arrested by the FBI today on narcotics charges and using his position for extortion, among other charges. Shouldn't disciplinary actions be as simple as, if you break the rules, you face the consequences, and then allow the case to work its way through the judicial system? As mayor, will employee disciplinary actions be handled in-house as work rule violations, or will the city sit back and wait for outside criminal investigations to be conducted before city workers are held accountable? Mr. Starr, you have 2 minutes.
In the past, this is a pattern. In the past, the administration has not held the department heads accountable, and they have not held their staff accountable. And what happens is you get organizational rift, and a house divided amongst itself will not stand. So we have people making bad decisions. That has to stop. Now, you have to be present. You have to be in the different departments. You know, the mayor said you don't want to go out hand-holding, you want to delegate, put people in positions. But very clearly, this has been going on long enough that we need to establish a very clear leadership model and performance standards that we're holding people accountable to. And there is no reason why we cannot go ahead and fire somebody if we already know there are workplace violations that justify that, and yet we wait until the criminal investigation is finished. There's no reason to do that. I'm not afraid to make that decision and hold people accountable.
Thank you. Mayor, you have 2 minutes.
I can tell by his answer he hasn't had a lot of experience in dealing with the public sector. If this would have happened in the private sector, you could hand them on the day it happened. But this is public sector. They have their rights. So before we do anything, we have to make our case. We have, I see our law director here, past law directors here. It's important to us, before we step forward, even though we have suspicions, even though we may have people that may give testimony, it's important that we have the correct direction and make the right decision to start with. If the mayor would go over there, or have the service director go over there, really the service director, as you all know, has the authority over everybody except the chief, and we were to terminate them, immediately we've got evidence, we've done an action that allows them to sue us. What we've done, if you want to talk about the two cases we did earlier, Samantha mentioned the water wastewater position. We also have the detective in the police department. As a matter of fact, Samantha, you know more than I know. When you talk about being arrested and that sort of thing, I didn't know that, so thank you for that. But what I'm saying to you is we are taking the correct steps. Yes, I'd like to be aggressive, but I don't want to get tied up in a lawsuit for the next 10 years, or the next 5 years, in trying to deal with it. If it takes us a month or 2 months to deal with this, we will deal with it correctly. The other thing is, these are human beings we're dealing with. Yes, they work for the city. Maybe they made a mistake. But we have to deal with them as human beings. We treat them fairly. We give them the opportunities. In the end, we will make the right decision. If it is salvage the employee or terminate the employee, that's what will be done, and we're taking the right path.
Mr. Starr, any rebuttal?
Yeah. Ask any employee, and they're going to want to see that their friends get help before they get in trouble. Most of these cases are preventable. You do that, you prevent that by being present, by having a standard, by having good business practices in place where you are measuring performance, you're holding people accountable, and red flags come up earlier, and you can head those problems off at the pass. Yes, due process is due process, but we have administrative policy rules, and then there are criminal rules. I'm not going to wait to make that decision based on the criminal outcome. If they broke policy, they broke policy, and I will expect the safety service director to carry out our policy.
Mayor Mavis?
Maybe we should talk about how these people got their positions to start with. They took, in order to get employed with the city, you took a civil service test. And then after you've been there a while, maybe you want to move up, you take another test, and you take another test. The people who got to be detectives, the people who got to be sergeants, the people who got to be chiefs, captains, those people all took a test to get there. Now, we don't have a charter government here. Most of you know what charter government is. That's where a group of people get together, they create a government that they want. In other words, you still have the mayor, you still have council, but you give yourselves the opportunity to choose your leadership. You can go outside and choose your leadership. We do not have that opportunity. Most of you don't know there are two types of government, statutory and the type of where the people get together and develop their own strategy, their own government. We operate under the state revised code. If you have a charter government, you operate under the rules and regulations you put together. So when a person gets to be chief, or he gets to be captain or sergeant, he took the test to get there. It wasn't our opportunity to go in and say, this is the best man for the job. Now, if there's more than one, we sometimes have an opportunity. If there's only one, we have to do that. You know,
Thank you, sir. Your time is up. Sorry.
I guess I wasn't watching my time. Sorry about that.
Good evening. Well, that leads into my first question this evening. Critics of the city's police department have called for a change from a civil service system to a statutory or charter system for personnel. This would enable, as you just said, Mayor Mavis, higher ranking police officers to be hired from outside the MVPD rather than promote from within. Are you in favor of this idea? Why or why not? And let's start with Mr. Starr with 2 minutes.
Thank you. Let me put it to you this way. When I was playing high school football, the starting quarterback went down in the middle of the game. My head coach said, "Starr, get in there. You ain't much, honey, but you're all we got." That's a high school football organizational level. Now, had the coach had a chance to recruit outside, we probably would have won more football games because I'm just not that fast, okay? But my skill set was limited, and his ability to reach others was limited by virtue of his position, by virtue of the organization. With all of the problems that we have had in the past, there's nothing I'm not considering. I think it is something that could come to the forefront. I would be happy to entertain that debate, bring it before council and the voters. I don't get to decide that. The voters get to decide that. But I just know I can recruit different skill sets outside of our community. If we expect our business community to hire world-class talent, I think we owe it to ourselves to hire world-class talent in safety and services.
Mr. Mavis?
There are people in this room who have been around long enough to know that the city of Mount Vernon did have a charter proposal up. Voters defeated it soundly. Now, that doesn't mean we can't come back 30 or 40 years later and say we'd like to reconsider a charter government. It takes a committee to put together. Council has to support that committee. That committee is identified and there's a study. Usually it takes a year or two to do it. Now, in many cases, charter governments have been in force for a long time. It does give you, as Matt said, it does give you a greater responsibility in choosing your leadership. You don't have to choose the next guy in line. You can be a situation where you actually go out and take resumes from other places. Yes, that works, and I'd be in favor of putting together a committee and looking at that. We're not only talking about the police department here, we're talking about the fire department, we're talking about every one of our departments. That would change the way things are done. The civil service system would be basically defunct at that point. So, yeah, am I in favor of it? Yeah, I'm in favor of looking at that. I'm in favor of going to council and talking about it openly. In favor of having public meetings. That's how all this gets started. Yeah, you let the public be part of the plan. Of course, council has the end say in what happens there. So, charter governments have been around a long time. Mount Vernon defeated one a few years ago, or several years ago now. Would I be in favor of revisiting it? Yes.
Any rebuttal?
I think we covered that.
Okay.
Yeah, there's. It seems that we pretty much agree on that. The voters do get to decide.
Switching the conversation to budgetary concerns, and this is going to be fairly wide open for you to expound. Describe, and we're going to start with you, Mr. Starr, describe what you feel are the weaknesses and the strengths of the Mount Vernon city budget. What would you like to change or adjust, and how would you accomplish this?
Well, we need to start looking at, well, first of all, budgets. There's no difference in creating a budget if you're trying to put together a family vacation around the dinner table, or if you're trying to look to the next year, the next 3 years or 5 years, having a plan in place to be able to meet your needs. I think the biggest problem with the budget is that we don't know what performance is really in areas of safety, quality, and productivity. I think it's time we bring in some business standards and start taking some measurements. I want to know, how long does it take to put in a water tap? How long does it take to go fill a pothole? How long does it take to respond to an EMS call? And we may have we already have some of these statistics already, but I want to start looking to see where we can find that low-hanging fruit and really squeeze the tax dollars from the taxpayers and making those things stretch. So, in looking at the budget, it is a team effort. It really is getting everybody in the team. But first, we haven't really identified safety, quality, and productivity standards and how we compare with other municipalities of our size around the country. Once we know that, then we know what our budget should be. But we've never had that.
Mr. Mavis.
Depends on how big the pothole is. It depends on how deep the tap is. It's a difference between 4 feet and 6 feet, 8 feet. First of all, you have to figure out where our money comes from. City of Mount Vernon has 1.5% income tax. It's been driving this city since they implemented it. First the 1%, and then they voted another 0.5%. Thank you to our police and fire at that time. We also get a few dollars from real estate tax. You remember the governor balanced the budget took half of our local government fund away. You remember also did away with the state tax. The state tax gave us $300,000 a year. We have, with the utilities and everything, a budget of about $40 million a year. We have 160 employees. We serve about 6,500 individual residents. Budget is important. That's a good thing Matt said about this. Doesn't really make any difference how deep the pothole is or how deep the tap is. What we have got to do is make sure that the people have, when they turn on the tap, that they get their water. When they flush their toilet, the wastewater goes to a plant that puts it into the Kokosing Scenic River without contaminating it. When you have a heart attack, you need to make sure that someone shows up that's well trained with the right equipment, deliver the right service, so we save a life. The lives are saved in the first 5 minutes. If a fire develops, you need to make sure someone shows up and puts out the fire. If you have somebody breaking into your house at night, you want to make sure you can call a policeman. Expect somebody to be there. If you're gone and your alarm goes off, you know that somebody needs to respond there so can protect the jewels and money that you have in your house. All that is the job of a mayor. The mayor and the safety service director and the auditor of the city every year in October meet with all the department heads, and we put together their request. In January, council gets the opportunity to approve that. Budget is important. There is opportunity for the city to display the good use of their spending.
Rebuttal, Mr. Starr.
Yes, budgets are important. It is a team effort, and yes, people do have to have the opportunity to be a part of it. But the job is more than balancing a budget. It is getting productivity, quality, and safety measures identified and performed and measured and shared with the taxpayers so that we know that that budget is being stretched to the best of its ability.
Mr. Mavis?
The budget that we have every year is a participation of the council members, the department heads, and we put that together. Something you all should know that the last 3 years, we've gone to our department heads and said, give us a budget the same as the year before. The same as the year before. Now it's true that we have not filled some vacancies because we needed to keep up the same level of service. All of you want service. When it snows, you want the snow plowed. When it's freezing rain, you want the road treated. That's what we're up to here, and we have to take the money that's available to us. We can't manufacture money. We're not like the federal government does. So we have to live and work and perform the level of service that all you are happy with the money we have.
Beginning with Mr. Mavis, if you are reelected, what do you view as your responsibility toward the young people of this community? How does MVNU fit into that vision, and what will you do to encourage students to remain in the area after graduation?
In 1996 and 97 and 98, being a former school teacher, I thought it was a good idea when I became mayor to have a youth council. So I came out to the high school and the career center, and we had a junior and senior from the career center, a freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior from the high school, and then middle school students. So we put this youth council together. I probably made a mistake that we didn't use college students for that. Probably should have come to the university and asked for student participation, but I guess I was looking at the time, I was looking at how we make the city of Mount Vernon better within our own population. But frankly, after 3 years, we found that the kids had a difficult time making a monthly meeting. The other thing that was really discouraging, because they talked a lot about a youth center. Now, we have all kinds of fields and courts and all that sort of thing going on, but they thought there ought to be a place for somebody to do something in the evenings. So we spent a lot of time talking about that. And then I believe the chairman of the committee said, you know, if you have a youth center for youth, the kids that are cruising around, the kids that are running around gangs, they won't come. Well, I bet. Why won't they come? Well, because you have to have rules. And I said, you're right. If government's going to participate, we need rules. No drugs, no alcohol, no smoking, no fighting, no weapons. These kids that sat on that panel realized that. We can talk and we can complain about all these kids running around groups, but those kids don't want a group. They don't want a youth center where you have rules. we can't, as a government, we've got to have rules. So what am I going to do about it? I obviously have encouraged, and I love the idea that Kenyon College and Mount Vernon University encourage the students who come here to get involved in the local community. So we have a lot of student volunteers. Certainly we'll encourage that and hopefully develop others.
Mr. Starr?
Thank you. The number one reason people do not participate in anything is that they were never asked. I'm going to ask the youth to get involved in pretty much everything. This youth council, great idea. This was one of my bullet points on this. I want to have an active youth council that brings young people into the political process, that gets them involved. They know how to understand, they know how to access the resources of their government. They know their city council person. They know exactly where they can go to harness their local resources. Here's the first thing I want to have with this youth council. It's going to be organic. It's going to be loose. We're going to have a lot of fun. It's not just going to be sitting around in meetings talking about what we want to do. I'm going to have the youth council go around all of the city buildings and making sure that we are energy efficient. I want them to do an energy inventory, and I want them to present it to city council. I want them, we're going to do road cleanups, we're going to do all those other things, but I want the youth to get involved in the political process. These guys are the ambassadors that make up a significant portion of our community. It's important that they are involved in our 1, 3, and 5-year plan. We want this type of responsibility built into their social DNA now, so that we don't have to worry about them showing up at the polls. We don't have to worry about them showing up to volunteer to help at the homeless shelter, at the Food for the Hungry, at the hot meals. They're going to do that because they're used to doing it. They're used to giving of their time. So the youth, we're going to have a good time. And MVNU is going to play a significant role in that too. I've been out and have met with a lot of your students, and I'm really excited to get the opportunity to work with them, answer questions, and bring them on board.
Mr. Mavis, do you have a rebuttal?
We actually have had 2 energy assessments, and since I've been mayor. They were done by professionals, and they suggested we do things like change light bulbs. We change the heating and cooling systems that we had as far as thermostats and that sort of thing. So those things are good. I'm not sure how good youth would do as far as evaluating that system that we have. You know, Matt has a good idea. Get the kids involved. One of my favorite times of the year is in the spring when all the 3rd graders come to the city hall and find out about what the government's doing. There's a lot of opportunities for me to meet kids at various levels, listen to input that they have. But sometimes it's not all fun. Sometimes you have to make difficult decisions, and sometimes that doesn't make a lot of people happy. Sometimes young people don't always make the right decisions. So for me, I'm going to depend on the people who are serving the city. I'm going to depend on the leadership that we have, and on council members. And in the end, we'll take input from young people, but we're going to move this city forward.
Mr. Mavis, or sorry, Mr. Starr.
You can see how we're easily confused. What else do we want to do with the youth? We want to connect the youth with local businesses. Part of the other plan that I have, and this is relative to economic development, is a business and industry council. I hear it all the time. We have businesses in town, but we can't vote for our local official. If we have partnerships with these industries, with these businesses, and we get youth partnered up with them to learn about the different opportunities that we have in this community, then we have a chance of hiring them on. My interns have worked for one of my businesses. I've hired them on, and it's great. Some of them are from MVNU, some of them are from COTC, some of them from the Career Center. And it's a wonderful opportunity to have that educational infrastructure in place to support the human resources.
Thank you. Mayor Mavis, I want to apologize to you. We took a question out of order, and when we did that, it kind of messed up our alternating who starts and who goes next. I think we're back on track now, okay?
I wasn't, measuring it all. I was just taking them as they come.
All right. 19th District State Senator Chris Jordan has proposed legislation that would tax income based on where a person lives rather than where they work. This measure is gaining support locally from those people who work in the city but live elsewhere. As mayor, is this legislation you would support? Why or why not? And how would you communicate that with Senator Jordan?
When I first read that, I thought it was a joke. Someone that would propose that has no idea how cities survive. Delaware's in his district. I can't imagine one person in the city of Delaware government would support that kind of thing. Do you have any idea what would happen if we pulled away? Just the people who lived here would pay that 1.5%. How are we going to pay the policemen? How are we going to pay the fire department? How are we going to do the streets? I tell those people, and I get a lot of calls. I drive here from Dublin to work, and they've got a 2 or 2.5% income tax, and I have to pay the city 1%. We give a 0.5% credit. We used to give all, but we had to change that to survive. This is a time of survival financially. I'm not sure where the senator's coming from on that. I know that sounds very good for people who drive to Mount Vernon and work. They do pay their income taxes or at the other place where they live. Frankly, I would not support that. I think it's ludicrous even to think about it. And if I see Senator Jordan, I will tell him that to his face. I just think that he could not have thought through this. He could not have talked to city leaders. We have 17,000 people out of 61,000 live inside the city. We have another 500 or 5,000 that come to work every day. So, and then all the people that come to shop and do that sort of thing. How do we keep that infrastructure going with an income tax cut like that? No, I'm not for that, and I'm not very friendly when I think about it either.
Sorry to bring those unfriendly thoughts to the group tonight. Mr. Starr.
I'm going to start scooting over this side stage right here a little bit. Frankly, I'm not exactly sure I agree with it either. We may or may not agree on this. I need to know exactly where he's coming from also, because we have people who, ideally, we want people to live, work, and recreate here. That is what we want. We do have some people who choose to live in New Albany, who choose to live in Granville and work in town, but they're supporting another school district. We need to support our own school district. Pay where you live is simple. I think that's where he might be going with it. But when did complexity become a vice? We have to look, we have to be fair with this. Fairness from the city standpoint, the school standpoint, and of course, the resident standpoint. I would need him to explain it further to me as well.
Mayor, any further comment?
No.
This next question came from a KnoxPages.com reader. Some neighborhoods in our city are being taken over by drug dealers, drug users, and thieves. We have some landlords who allow anyone to live in their properties without any kind of background check. Properties continue to lose value. What is your plan to combat this and stop good neighbors from moving out as neighborhoods continue to deteriorate? Mr. Mavis, you have 2 minutes.
I only have 2 minutes, so I'm going to tell the story quickly. In the Methodist Church, Denise Marikas gave this as part of a sermon one day. It was like this father and son, young minister and little league player at church. They had a little league ball game coming up. Father couldn't make it. He tells the little boy, "Go on down to the park. I'll be down." He finished up, went down to the park. The game had already started. He walked to the outfield fence and said to his son, "What's the score?" And the little boy says, 17-0. And the father said, "Well, who's winning?" And the kid says, "I don't know." And the father said, "Well, why don't you know?" He said, "We haven't been to bat yet." I've already apologized to Denise saying, "I'm sorry, I don't remember the rest of the sermon. I remember that story because I immediately thought, it's 17-0 and this community is behind. We've let the drug epidemic get beyond us. And as I've told people, if you think hiring extra police are going to do it, that won't do it. Ask them. 3 or 4? No, if I asked them the other day, said, hire 4 more detectives, we got 4 for the drug case and 4 for regular criminals. My plan is, and by the way, you read Fredericktown was going to do a thing on neighborhood watch. We used to have one here. Here's my neighborhood watch. You get people, you train them, you do background checks on them, you make sure they have a cell phone, and you set them on a schedule. I don't want people coming out and say, well, it's 9 o'clock, I think I'll go out and walk around. No, that's not going to work. What I want to see is 17,000 pairs of eyes. I want you all to know your neighbors. I want you all to get out and pay attention to what's going on, what kind of cars they drive, what's regular in the neighborhood. If we have people who will call in and say, I think there's something happening, I see something happening, it's like see and tell. I think that works. And the problem is that people like me and my wife sitting out there, we would say, let the police handle it. How many of you have said the same thing? The police are doing the best job they can do. We need to now step up. You, me, and everyone else that lives in this community are
Okay,
going to
thank
have to
you.
help out. Sorry about that.
Mr. Starr.
The drug problem has been plaguing our community for years, and we really have had no plan. It is to the point now where it's actually created what I would call a hope deficit. It's to the point where, yes, we cannot arrest ourselves out of this problem, but we do have to stop the hemorrhaging from occurring. We're bleeding, and we have to stop that. We have to have a full police force. We're still working short. We still have to have a full police force. I would be very happy to work with the police chief to make sure that we can increase the number of investigators solely devoted to investigating drug-related crime. This takes collaboration. This takes collaboration on a variety of levels. You mentioned landlords. I'm a businessman. I'm a producer. I know, in the film business, I take certain inherent risks. Landlords, when you have properties that you want to rent, you're taking certain inherent risks. And this is what I have to say about landlords. We have good landlords who are making sure that we put people in our homes that respect neighborhoods. But landlords are in the unique position to truly be the unsung heroes on our efforts to rid ourselves of the drug problem. They are not out front. They are behind the scenes. They know that if they look at an application and it's shady, it's not going to work. I'm going to have to go another month until I can collect a paycheck. But that's the sacrifice I'm going to make because it's the right decision. We don't want traffickers in our community, and landlords are positioned to truly be the unsung heroes in our efforts to reverse the drug problem.
Any rebuttal, Mayor Mavis?
Joel Daniels is the code enforcement officer for the city of Mount Vernon. He brought in a couple of photos that he takes on his camera. There's 2 junk cars been in this property. It's a rental property. It's been there for a couple of months, and he's been working with the owner. Finally, Joel said, you have to get those cars moved, if not, we're going to tow them. The guy says, go ahead and tow them. He says, I'm afraid of the guy that lives there. That's why I don't have a lot of confidence that landlords are going to help us out on this. I think we have our rules and regulations. 17,000 of us living together. We made the decision that we wanted to abide by the same rules and regulatory measures. Some people don't do that. They like to park their junk cars. They like to build up trash. So we have code enforcement, we're trying to do it. I'd like to think that every landlord would embrace the idea that I'm only going to have the best people living in my apartments, living in my houses. I just don't think it'll happen without a great deal of support.
Rebuttal, Mr.
Yes,
Starr?
there are a lot more efforts of collaboration we're going to need to take in with this as well. We need to crack more cases on traffickers. We are already making efforts to prosecute trafficking differently from addiction. We need to get rid of addiction. That's the enemy. As long as we have addiction, we are going to find a way to get the product, and some traffickers are going to find a way to get the product into our community. We're going to need help with employment. We're going to need help with transitional housing. And we're going to need to stop playing defense and get the ball and play offense. That's a very important part of this 1, 3, and 5-year plan. I said it before, failure to plan is a plan to fail.
As mayor, how important is change to you? What are the most dramatic steps you would take to be groundbreaking as mayor, if you become mayor? And as returning mayor, what would you change, if anything, the way you do business? And we'll start with Mr. Starr.
I love change. I cannot be the only one excited in this room because it is exciting to be alive right now. We are on the verge of a technology boom. We're on the verge of a population boom. We have innovation that is right at our fingertips. It is changing everything, and it is going to change government. We are going to be connected in ways that we never have been able to do that before. Thinking about economic development, infrastructure, drug addiction and recovery, and reducing the drug crime. We need to have a change. The biggest change we need to have is we need to have that 1, 3, and 5-year plan. We still do not have that. The Knox County has the comprehensive plan. We're a part of that, but we need to take that and mold it and make it our own. Our part of that needs to become our own. And that's something that is going to take all of us to be a part of. This is our community. We need to have everything identified in terms of where we want to go, how we want to do it, and what we expect, where we expect to be. And again, change in government is like running, I'm bringing a business attitude and mentality to this. We need pillars of safety, quality, and productivity across the board. I always ask, when I consult, and I always ask employees, are you good at what you do? And how do you know?
Mr. Mavis?
I know everyone out there is thinking, gee, he's been there 20 years. You know, I prided myself in leading change. If you look at the city 20 years ago and look at it now, it's changed a lot, but people are going to say, he's been there 20 years, a lot should have happened. But we've made some strides. So, I'm not sure where Matt and he and I are not in a place or the time to arm wrestle out about what 1, 5, and 10-year plans are all about, 1, 3, and 5, or whatever. Actually, I don't know how you survive without having planning. I mean, we know each year about what our incomes are going to be, and we know what we have to spend the next year. You know, we've had a freeze on employees for a long time, because we knew we couldn't pay for any more permanent employees. We hired firefighters a few years ago because we knew that if we could hire full-time firefighters, it would reduce the cost of emergency overtime. And it did. When we didn't have to pay emergency overtime, then it actually paid for those extra firefighters. We do have a plan. We've had a plan every year I've been here. Now, we're part of the comprehensive plan. I've helped work on each one of those comprehensive plans that we've had. But our idea is to have the water and wastewater services that we can build upon, to have the transportation we can build upon. Change is inevitable. Every day is a change. When I go to work every day, it's a pleasure to go to work because I know I'm going to have a new adventure. Thank you.
Rebuttal?
Well, I guess I'm really curious where this plan is because I have not seen it. It's beyond a budget. It's beyond capital projects. It's where are we going to be next year? Where are we going to be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? I think we need to see it, and if it does exist, I think it needs to be shared, it needs to be transparent, it needs to be out there for all of us to take a look at. You go to the county's website, there it is. You can find it in regional planning, 100-page document. I can't find it.
Mr. Mavis? Rebuttal?
I guess I misunderstood. You do not have a copy of the most recent comprehensive plan?
I do have a copy of that.
Okay, and in that, City of Mount Vernon is included in that part of the plan. Maybe you're saying that, you know, we haven't said how many dollars we're going to spend here, what road we're going to build, and that sort of thing. We do have, by the way, Matt, we have the 13th corridor through town. We have the new Mount Vernon Avenue Bridge. We have the new intersection south of the viaduct. There are a number of those plans. We have the next 3 years planned on resurfacing. We have to plan that $2 million is going to be our share. We have to plan where that's coming from. So we do have that plan. I'm not quite sure that if you want us to spell it out and put it on the city website, maybe we need to do that.
Beginning with Mr. Mavis, there has been talk about moving the fireworks display from Memorial Park to Ariel Foundation Park. Is Ariel Foundation Park the right venue for fireworks? How do you deal with relocating some community events to the new park while saying no to events that are not suited to the venue, especially when those requests come from people or organizations that you have strong relationships with and who have given generously to the city?
I think after this year's 4th of July, that was our grand opening of the Ariel Foundation Park. It was a wonderful day, a wonderful fireworks. But when I first became mayor, the fireworks were at the fairgrounds. It was a difficult place. There was an accident there where fireworks went sideways rather than up, and we had an injury there. For a couple of years, we didn't have fireworks. So we moved it to Memorial Park. The city's been putting $10,000 a year in it, so that 22-minute show you have out there is a result of the city council's generosity. This year was different. We had a new park. It was a new celebration. We had a $15,000 donation. The request of the donor was, let's not do a 22-minute show. Let's do something like 12 minutes or 15 minutes. We talked to the pyrotechnic people. They said they could do it. So what we had at Foundation Park was basically a finale for 12 minutes. Those of you who were here, it's a lot different than one that goes off every second or so. There were several going off. So I did go to council, and I did suggest maybe that we move the fireworks all to Ariel Foundation Park. There are those terraces there that gives us a high level in which to launch from. So I asked them to consider that. There's been no decision on that, but I did do that, and I think it is a little better venue, certainly better opportunities to view it. But at this point, I wouldn't say that was the definite place that we're going to have it. But yes, it was my idea to do that. What we had was on July 3rd, we had fireworks at Memorial. July 4th, we had it out there. I was merely suggesting we do everything on July 4th and have a grand celebration.
Mr. Starr?
There you go. I attended the event also. In fact, Mayor and I did work together on organizing this event, the grand opening at Ariel Foundation Park. If you missed it, man, you missed a great time. It was wonderful. I think it was about 8,000 or 9,000 people showed up out.
Someone said 10.
Oh, well.
It was difficult to count.
We'll say 10,000 people showed up out there. And it was just wonderful to see this brand new park ushered into our community that way. So your question was, would we move the fireworks out? I would be totally fine with that if council decided to do that. It's a wonderful venue. It's easier to get around. I think it makes practical sense that it's there. It's easier to park, maneuver, get out. I would certainly entertain having the Independence Day celebration there every year. But that's only one vote, okay? We can talk about that in council, or we can pull a special committee, whatever we need to do. In getting other groups there, this is also another area where youth can be involved. I had a conversation with four youth in our community, 2 middle school students, 2 high school students, and I said, you know what? You guys always tell me there's nothing to do in Mount Vernon. I said, I don't believe that for a second. Let's sit down, we're gonna brainstorm. We're gonna talk about what we can do. And going to parks is one of them. Going to the bike paths is another one. Going to the water park, all those things. And talking about doing some music in the park. Using your imagination. No money fun. We have these options in our community. Sometimes we forget. The youth can be involved in helping with planning. And the Foundation Park Conservancy is where to start. I also see Susan Carl, who's in charge of volunteers. Councilwoman Carl can help steer people in that direction, but we need help with programming. That's where you can help.
Mr. Mavis, any rebuttal?
No.
The city limit continues to grow, especially on the east side. How will you develop a plan for growth that encompasses infrastructure, traffic and safety issues, as well as the increased areas of coverage for our police and fire departments? And is more commercial development on the Harcourt Road area something the city should explore? Mr. Starr, you can start.
Wow, that was a loaded question. We've got, you understood fully there, yeah. Expansion to the east side. Well, our city apparently wants to grow east. And Harcourt Road, yeah, I would like to see some things going there. The thing about infrastructure is that we know principles of infrastructure really have not changed, and that means a strong infrastructure means a strong community. So, planned growth, and as we expand that way, we have annexation, particularly type 2 annexations, which basically, in a nutshell, the state has said, you as property owners, if your property is adjacent to city property, you have the right to petition to become a member of the city and receive services like fire, EMS, water, wastewater, public utilities, police. The city is afforded the income tax. The township retains the property tax, which most of it goes to the schools anyway. At any rate, as mayor and as a representative of a city who has a great deal of wonderful resources, I would be very happy to share that with anybody who wanted to come in to be a part of the city. I think that looking at Harcourt Road, it would be a very nice, I think we're primed there for development because of Aerial Foundation Park. I think when we start seeing more and more activity there, that's going to draw traffic. We're going to need to look at infrastructure. We're going to need to look at widening so that we can accommodate that. And when we have an infrastructure that's wider and can accommodate more traffic, then retail is going to follow.
Mr. Mavis. Mayor Mavis.
In 2001, when they changed the annexation rules, I said that was the craziest idea that ever happened. You can live in the city and live in the township. And so I called the Census Bureau in Chicago. I said, in Ohio, we just did something kind of funny. The legislature did it. They said that you could stay in the township and you can vote for mayor and you can vote for township trustee. As a matter of fact, you can run for mayor and live in the township. I said, how are we going to deal with that in the area of census? Remember the census forms? Where do you live? You're going to say, well, I live in the city and I live in the township. Apparently they do that. The people in Chicago said, nah, they wouldn't have done that. And I said, oh, yes, they did, and they've been doing it, and we're doing it now. It's a convenient thing to have annexation, so as Matt says, they can get city water and city sewer. Since I've been mayor, we have not blocked water and sewer services to the township. As a matter of fact, in 1996, my first year, when we got to October that year, we had already signed a contract with the Clinton Water and Wastewater District because they had to have water and wastewater. They could not afford to build their own treatment plant for water or their own treatment plant for wastewater. Harcourt Road is not yet in the city. Clinton Township has always been a little protective about whether the city would annex property. So since 2001, we have not been very aggressive in annexing property. We've usually we're driven by the people, the property owners. So yes, we've done some things out in the east, and again, we give the real estate tax dollars to the township. That's all an agreement. Any annexation that takes place, we have to form a separate agreement, no matter the size of the property, with the township to make sure everybody's happy there. But right now, I think we know where our sewer and water. I did a map, and I've got 15 seconds. I took it to RPC a few years ago that said, this is a map of the county, and I said, this is how far we can go water, this is how far we can go wastewater. I thought that was a good thing. The township trustees and the other people there thought that it was a method of advancement for the city. It wasn't that at all. It was a matter of saying, this is how far we can go with the infrastructure.
Mr. Starr, any rebuttal?
Property owners get to decide that. I don't. It's lawful for them, and it's illegal for me to deny them access. We do want to be careful that we are making sure that we're spending one day cutting the curbs and putting the lanes in rather than having to go back and do it numerous times. Where with annexation, which drives a lot of people in the city crazy about this is that we have the appearance of urban expansion. And there are entities that are preserving the green space. The Owl Creek Conservancy, Philander Chase Corporation. These are great organizations, noteworthy costs. I've done work for them. Where our power exists in dealing with the annexations is in the zoning board. That's where our power is.
Mayor Mavis.
I think about 10 years ago, we used some Clean Ohio funds to buy a 50-acre wetland out off of what is now Industrial Park Drive. We did that with the support and the assist and preparation of the application from Owl Creek Conservancy. I am pleased to say that this agreement has been a long time coming, but the city of Mount Vernon will continue to own the property, the Owl Creek Conservancy, because that's their job. They can do a much better job of maintaining that conservancy than we can. So I think maybe that agrees with what Matt's saying, but we are trying to preserve our wetlands. We're trying to also develop water and wastewater to serve areas, and we've done a pretty good job of it.
Members of the public and city council have complained about the lack of communication from the current administration. If you are the winner on election night and serve the city for the next 4 years, what ideas do you have to keep the public and council better informed on city issues and happenings? And Mr. Mavis, you have 2 minutes.
Every Friday, we do a press conference, kind of review with the Mount Vernon News on what we've done. Every Tuesday, do a radio program, kind of reviews with the radio audience what we do. We do Knox Pages once a month. We are televised on all of our meetings. By the way, we realized through the letter process that the cameras that we have, the camera we have is not very good. You turn on city council on council evenings, you'll find that we have lines through us and apparently look a little bit green. We're working on getting a new camera. One of the things that happened to us, we no longer have a contract with Time Warner, so they say that they don't have.
He's mine, I'm sorry.
Anyway, we're gonna have to buy the camera ourselves, but you know, we do have a city website. It talks about who the council members are, who the administration is. You can pay your water, wastewater bill. You can pay your income tax bill. You can get a event slip, and you can lease a park property or schedule a park property. We have Facebook accounts in both the police and fire. I understand the fire is not interactive, but they do post things. The police is. Chief handles it himself. And frankly, I'm a little awkward when it comes to tweet, Instagram, some of the other modern day social media. I'm all for it. I think one of the things we're looking at, and I give Tanya Newell, who's an administrative assistant, and Dee Wood, working for the service director, we have gone paperless as far as council communication. We communicate through that method. I used to send letters, but keep this in mind. If you come to City Hall, we still talk to you. That's part of what we do well.
Mr. Starr.
I was gonna grab my phone and take a picture of Virgil talking on the cell phone there. I'll hang that one up in council chambers. How about that? Communication. Yes, this is extremely important for us to do, and we need to embrace technology that is going to help us get with the 21st century. City Council is available on Time Warner Cable, Channel 9, but a lot of people do not have Time Warner Cable. That's a problem. I would like to see us be able to live stream that and have it being played back on demand as well. I think it's important that, yeah, I know when City Council's up there and they look green, part of it is the lighting. I noticed, speaking from filmmaking experience, fluorescent lights are not very kind. But it's also that most of us have high definition televisions and we're sending a standard definition signal. It is a fraction of what it's supposed to carry. makes us nuts every year, Food for the Hungry, because we put all this effort into communicating this message. Our communication infrastructure needs vastly improved. We're in no way ready for the future with what we have. We've got to find a way to do that. Frequency and updates from Facebook, Twitter, the website, whatever, that's great. I'm also interested in seeing us develop a Mount Vernon City app. I have a 16-year-old volunteer who I said, you know, I really would like to see an app that can be used in two-way communication, not only for sharing updates from city, but also having you, the citizenry, be able to get information to us when we can't be out there. Municipalities around the country are having a great deal of success with this. My favorite story, take a picture of the pothole, it locks in the GPS coordinates, sends it in to the street department, gets it in real time on their work order system, and sends you a text back that says, thank you for the photo, it's on our work order system for Tuesday.
Any rebuttal, Mayor Mavis?
I don't know much about cameras, lighting, and I mean, it's daylight, it's dark, it's dark, but Matt's got all the skill involved in filming and that sort of thing, and I'm not going to pretend I'm something I'm not. We move forward with the information we have. We have people who assist us in making those decisions. I appreciate the aggressive qualities of some of our staff that have helped us reach those upper levels. But I don't know some of the things you've been talking about, but I do know this. I do know that we have people who are out there every day. We get a phone call about a pothole, we go out. Maybe that's not as quick as sending it to, but all we do is tell us the address and we'll go out and pull a pothole. So we're still operating maybe a little behind it, but we're operating like most other cities are operating. Thank you.
Mr. Starr.
I'm just so excited about how technology is going to change our world. It's exciting. I'm really looking forward to pulling the youth involved in this and making these changes as well. How would you like to see updates from your parks superintendent on video? This is what we have going on. How would you like to see updates from the mayor, the safety service director, something that you can see on demand? How would you like to have city council be able to be played back in classrooms where they're studying Robert's Rules of Order? That's a game film that we can repurpose living, breathing democracy that means something to our youth. And I think that technology and communications and having a communications infrastructure that's going to be able to serve multiple purposes is one of the things that just fires me up.
I'm going to change my question a little bit here because you have covered a lot of the things that I think you would talk about in it. So let's turn to social issues. What social issues are near and dear to you, and how would you champion them? Whether or not you can legislate them or not, I think we have a lot of issues with a lot of children that run around without parents. Would be one that I would be interested in what your answer would be for that, and we'll start with Mr. Starr.
Recently, I participated in a couple of United Way kickoff events. Most recently, a poverty simulation out of the Lake Holm Church, where you're given there, you sign up and you meet your family for the day. I was a wife and I had a husband and 2 grandchildren that we were raising because the father's not been seen from, and the mother, well, was in jail for drugs. So, and each family was different, and we had to find a way to work. We had to find a way to get to work. We had to find a way to access, to make ends meet, to look with real budgets. And if our home happened to be robbed, we had to figure out okay, what do we do now? Do we pay for the kids' school supplies? Do we pay for the medication? Do we let the electricity shut off? How are we going to handle that? And still be able to spend time with our grandkids, read them stories, take them away from to give them an escape from the tragedy that they're used to. The homelessness simulation that we did, it's really noisy being homeless when you're out there. We did an all night. We got a hot meal at the Salvation Army. 7 other community leaders and I were out there, and we talked about real live cases. I cannot walk by a homeless person and think, what is that person's story? What can we do as a community to reach out to make sure that we are a rising tide? Because a rising tide will lift all ships. When they do well, we all do well.
Mr. Mavis?
I wish I had the answer. I will share a story. A mother and a daughter visited me this summer, and they came in to complain about the police department because the police department had harassed them. And I said, why would they harass you? Well, we're camping. I said, where are you camping? You're camping along the Kokosing River just up from Riverside Park. And I said, well, he was right. The city doesn't allow camping in the city. And I began to talk to him. I find that there is a 12-year-old little boy with him and a father who's trying to get on disability. So I called the Department of Jobs and Family Services, but the mother had told me that Jobs and Family Services had already been out there and approved their campsite for those 2 kids to live there, which seemed a little odd, but I called there and they verified. And then they told me that in the summertime it's not unusual for people to camp out because they don't have a place to live. You know, we have, fortunately, we now have a male and a female homeless shelter. I see where Columbus sometimes puts millions of dollars into homeless shelters and shelters. We don't have that. I don't know how they do that. We wouldn't have any money to put toward that. We can support it. We can work with them and as they set up the shelters as far as water and wastewater are concerned. We can do all those kinds of things. And we can encourage them to get involved with social agencies, to get assistance. I think it's a problem, and the city itself does not have money. We can participate, we can help United Way, we can help with Food for the Hungry, we can help for all those agencies that do that sort of thing. But I don't have an answer for that question on how to find a solution.
Mr. Starr?
We're going to keep supporting these social services that are near and dear to our hearts, and I'm on about half a dozen of those boards. And so those causes are noteworthy. One other thing that we sometimes joke about is, what are you going to do with the cat problem or the dog problem? This is, it seems like whenever we have an animal that's locked up outside, within 2 minutes, 50 people are all over Facebook and are ready to attack the homeowner. Yet when we have a woman, an elderly person in our community who's stabbed to death numerous times, no one shows up in court. That really bothers me. Abuse, mistreatment is deplorable. Let's show the same care and compassion to human beings.
Mr. Mavis?
The domestic shelter has a program now. Some city people went to the training. It's one of those programs where they're training people to recognize spousal abuse or just abuse to other human beings, and then have the courage to stand up and say something about it. That's one program that's out there. There are many programs that are being developed by our local agencies, and again, we all have to participate to make that work. Other than that, I think it is a community problem, and I think we work together to solve it.
Mr. Mavis, 2 of the biggest concerns expressed by city residents are job creation and new business. What kind of leadership role will you take to bring better paying jobs and more retail establishments? And what will you do to generate more retail in the downtown business district?
We have a new hotel going to open up in the year. Hopefully the Woodward project will move ahead and be done within a 2 to 3 year period. We have the bicycle trail about to be completed. We have a new Taco Bell, Rite Aid expansion. Wendy's just built a new store. We have another store going to be built out on Coshocton Road. One of the things I should share with you is after being in a meeting at the industrial park, we went out there to talk about the traffic on Route 13, getting workers out in the afternoon, especially getting them in the morning. But in the course of that discussion, the people at Gerald Wynn said, you know, we could get another line in here We could have another line of windows, but he said our administration says no because we can't fill the jobs we have. Well, I bet. Why can't you? He said, well, first of all, we can't get people to pass the drug test. Secondly, we find people can pass the drug test, and then they don't like to work more than 2 or 3 days when they have to come to work at 8 o'clock in the morning. We have, and there's all kind of information out there, job creation generally comes from existing business, from expansion. We need a workforce that they can choose from and they can get more employment here. Again, we go back to the drugs, getting people that can and will do work. Matt talked earlier about the Starfish program. I'm all for the judges. Let's not put them in jail for users, but put them in jail if they actually commit a crime. Those are the things we need to do from a community standpoint. But job development, if you have the infrastructure, if you have the labor force, if you have the support from police and fire and emergency medical services, you have the parks, you have the good schools, you have the libraries, all those things will generate interest in our community. Not only bring employees, but bring new business from a commercial and from an industrial perspective.
Mr. Starr?
Get the people here, then the retail will come. One of the things that I want to do, I mentioned earlier, is to create a business and industry council. This is a direct line of communication from the businesses that are creating the wealth in our community. They're providing the jobs. Many of them do not live in the city, but they still have to live with our decisions. I think it's important that they have a voice. And we're going to continue to support the development organizations, Area Development Foundation, Chamber of Commerce, the Heritage Center Association. Heritage Center Association, of course, is geared to the Central Business District development. But I want to do more than that. I want to work with this council and create industry. I want to take a shot at it. I want to try something entrepreneurial. Call me an enlightened capitalist. But if we get with the business and industry representatives around here, and we start asking the question, what technology, if it existed today, would put you out of business? Then we develop that technology here. We have contests. I've seen this work. We have innovation contests with a cash prize that's worthy and gets a competition going for people to want to win the bragging rights and the cash prize. And what happens is that you have enormous innovation happening at one time. That is the birthplace of industry. Steve Jobs did this with Apple. That's why we have the iPhone now. The iPhone put the other product line out of business. He took that product line out of his company with something better, but he did it in-house. I think nowadays, just looking at how technology is changing everything, we need to start looking at what would put us out of business. Let's go after the technology here. Let's keep the worker. Let's keep the human resource base here, and let's expand our business community.
Mr. Mavis, do you have anything to add?
We have in this community, Area Development Foundation, by the way, we just hired a new director, Jeff Harris. He comes to us locally living, but from a recent job as assistant director of the economics, I believe, in the city of Worthington. So we have a new head of that program. But one of the things ADF has tried to do for years is to get the local industry leaders to come to meetings. Most of them are too busy to come to the meetings. Most of them, we found over the history that it's difficult for them to come. So we try to work with them. What is it you need? One of the things we need here, there's no question about, is engineers. Talk to Ariel, talk to Siemens, talk to other businesses that need engineers. That's why the Nazarene University is putting an engineering program. That's why some of the local schools are working on it. They're all trying to hire engineers from other places. One of the reasons that Rolls-Royce was going to build that new building over in Polaris, because they thought, number one, it's close to the international airport, because they wanted to hire young people, and they thought young engineers prefer the nightlife and the activities in major. We got them to change their mind.
Mr. Starr?
Two other points with regard to attracting business here. If we want to attract this big business here, we're going to have to make it so that we have 4 lanes coming into the town. We have to be able to support We have to have the infrastructure to be able to allow commerce to happen. We're not close to a major highway, so we've got to be able to make it happen. The other thing that will develop the economy is to strengthen the schools. Another chief question that is asked by anybody wanting to start a business here or wanting to move here is how strong are the school systems? I think we've got a pretty decent school system here. We've got a lot going for us here. That doesn't mean we become complacent. We continue to raise the bar, we continue to challenge, we be competitive. That way people are opting to live here instead of New Albany.
For our final question this evening, I'd like to talk about the fire department. A couple of years ago, the city was in negotiations with the college in Monroe Township about possibly servicing those areas, and currently the city is working with Liberty Township to discuss potential for the city to provide the fire and EMS services. So it seems inevitable that the boundaries of where we serve fire and EMS are going to expand. So how can the city prepare for this expansion, including the addition of another fire station and additional personnel that would be necessary? Mr. Starr, you have 2 minutes.
Again, this is something that needs to be outlined in a plan. And needs to be data-driven. And one of the things that in business, well, in this case a $40 million company, contracts are important. Contracts that have to be fair. Contracts that aren't going to subsidize but be fair so that we are not taking from our tax base and subsidizing other townships. Contracts preserve relationships. And that's where I would put my emphasis in getting people to the table, looking at data, being able to respond. Now, if a house is on fire, we're gonna go help. There's no question. We're not gonna stop at the township line. Should have signed a contract, right? No, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna go help. We're gonna put out the fire. But it helps if we know we are on the same page right from the get-go.
Mayor Mavis?
The truth of the matter is that costs are increasing. The voters are not receptive to additional taxes to pay for anything, including fire. The people in Liberty Township that we've been talking to, they belong to the Central Ohio Fire District. They're paying $5.5 million there. One of the reasons they're looking at us, can we do it cheaper? And can we provide a more efficient service? Are we going to get there faster? Are we going to have paramedics on board? Are we going to be able to save the lives that might not be saved? We did talk to College Township and Monroe Township. That didn't work out. I think College Township would have been easy to solve. Monroe Township was more difficult. So right now, that's nothing's happening in that. So making sure we get paid for what we do is going to be critical. One of the things I think as we move forward is that we're going to go to countywide EMS and fire. There will be districts set up. We'll have to respond. People will have to pay what it costs. Right now, Clinton's going to pay us $5. I believe Morris is paying $4 or $5 in Pleasant Township, and we base that on the number of calls we make and what it costs to make each run. So they're paying, I think, $2.5. So it is important that we deliver the service. It's important we have professionals trained to do the job, and we look forward to continuing to look at expansion. If we expand, of course, it does take, and we're looking at part-time firefighters also, looking at satellite stations. All those things would have to be considered if we go beyond our territory right now.
Again, I apologize. Mr. Starr, you have 2 minutes.
I'm waiting. For rebuttal.
You're ready. No, you're right.
I've already
It
done
is.
this, yeah.
You have.
Nothing else.
Okay. All right, so then I guess we'll move on to closing statements. Mr. Starr, you will start us out. You have 2 minutes for that.
I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I'm having a good time. I'm having a blast. I know I've been critical of the mayor, but it's how I show my love. I'm still gunning for his job. I think it's time for a new generation of leadership. I'm ready to take the ball. I want the ball, and I want it to catapult us into the next 20 years, where we write our next chapter. I'm interested and excited about bringing a business approach to government, embracing technology, embracing the youth, expanding our horizons, and looking at the challenges ahead of us together. It's exciting to be alive right now. I can't be the only one excited in the room about where we are in the world right now. I am anxious to work with department heads and a safety service director who are going to be committed to identifying operations standards of what quality, safety, and productivity look like. And I'm anxious to measure those regularly and sharing them with the community. I can't tell you how much I have fallen in love with this community. I'm a sucker for a good cause, so I'm involved in a lot of social issues, and at the same time, I love to make a profit. That's why I like to call myself an enlightened capitalist. At any rate, on November 3rd, you guys get a chance to set the course for the next 20 years. I am extremely excited to be the next mayor, and I look for your vote, and I promise to make you proud. Thank you all.
Mayor Mavis.
I too want to thank the great turnout we had this evening. When you choose a doctor, I'm guessing you look at the experience of the doctor. When you choose a dentist, you may do the same thing. If you were hiring a teacher to teach your youngsters, I'm guessing you'd look at experience there. I'm saying maybe you should look at experience and leadership of the city for the next 4 years. I'm only going to say 4 years because it's a 4-year term. When the third graders come to city council, I tell them when they grow up to choose the job that they can go to and be like me. I tell them I never had to work a day in my life. I liked the jobs I had when I was teaching. I liked the job when I was county commissioner. I liked the 40 years we spent in the sporting goods business, the 20 years we owned a mobile home park. I liked the 19 years and 9 months I've been with the city of Mount Vernon. Am I excited about coming to work every day? Yes. Am I excited when somebody calls me on the phone and calls me some kind of name? No, I don't like that. I don't like when somebody sends me a cardboard box and says it through the mail. And when I open it up, there's one of those glass skunks in it that you win at the county fair, and there's a Post-it note on it that says appropriate. In this job, we don't make everybody happy. We make our community better. And that's what being mayor is all about, is making this community a better place. And I'm not telling you that I'm going to do all the communication, social communication. We do that and we move ahead as we learn about it and as we can afford it and as we can educate our people to use it. Matt's an honorable opponent, and that's the only thing I've asked for in 16 elections. If I have an honorable opponent, that's the biggest part of my campaign, to have someone that I'm going to campaign against. He is. I am hoping that on November 3rd, you'll cast your vote for re-election of Dick Mavis. Thank you.
How about a round of applause for our committee? Thank you both for joining us tonight. Not only, I think, were we entertained, but we are also very well educated on the two platforms that they have, and hopefully that will help us make better decisions at the voting polls. I need to thank Chris Devine and the Mount Vernon Nazarene University for hosting us tonight, and all the tech guys that have been gracious in helping us. I'm also grateful for Marty and Curtis and Mariah for helping us ask all the questions. But most of all, I'm grateful that all of you folks showed up and understand the value of events like this to make sure that we continue to have a great city and that we have good things to look forward to in the future. So thank you all and have a safe night home.